How do I find a new job? How can I make a career change? And the biggest question of all, can I really find a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I get what companies are looking for when hiring top talent. What that means for you is an unmatched combination of insider knowledge and the best kept secrets about making heart-based career changes and navigating the ups and downs of job searching in today's world of work. Whether you're a recent graduate navigating the job market for the first time or a seasoned professional ready for a career change, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to be challenged and inspired to move beyond your self-doubt and take the right next steps towards landing a career you love. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm Jen Smith, your host, and today I'm thrilled to be here for another installment of Flourishing Together, a monthly segment dedicated to curated conversations with industry insiders sharing wisdom and strategies for improving your work and well-being. Today, I am delighted to introduce you to Dr. Vasu Tolia. Vasu creates empowering art for mindful living and healing. Her vibrant, socially conscious artworks are designed to inspire, heal, and uplift. As an artist with a deep passion for creative expression, gender equality, and giving back, she pours her heart into each piece, crafting unique stories that celebrate women's narratives, the beauty of nature, and the universal human experience. Her journey as a self-taught artist began after she retired from a fulfilling career in medicine. Through both representational and abstract paintings, she aims to capture the serene beauty of the natural world and translate intangible emotions and thoughts into visual stories. Every artwork she creates supports an impactful cause, so when you invest in her art, you're also contributing to a meaningful change. Vasu, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jen. I'm honored to be here and just look forward to chatting with you.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk about your career transition from pediatrician turned award-winning artist. So tell us the story.
So, my journey spans decades in academic medical fields, especially in pediatric gastroenterology. And when I thought of retiring, I knew that I had to find something to fill that void because I was an extremely busy and teacher, mentor, researcher, clinician, everything rolled into one.
Yeah.
So at that point, I decided to look into some form of arts. So I dabbled into singing and music, like started to learn to play harmonium, which is an Indian instrument.
Oh, wow.
But then it just didn't span out because of, the teacher not being available all the time and all that. So then I said, I have to find something that I can do on my own. So that's when I started in visual art. I took some basic lessons at a local art center. And from there on, I haven't looked back. It took a few years before I found myself, especially in the time of COVID.
Yes.
I liberated myself from representational art into more abstract art and also just responding to the calls for COVID. All of us were in such distress at that time, a pandemic coming after another 100 years, and we never thought we would see something like that in our lifetime. So I made 10 to 15 paintings related to COVID, and there was a call by Washington Post for COVID art. So I submitted my piece there, and it got listed as amongst the top 20 artworks related to COVID in the nation.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was really thrilled about that. And since then, I haven't looked back like I told before. But more importantly, I want to share with you what thrilled me more was that the year after that, CDC contacted me and told me they would like to use that piece of artwork for the cover of their Journal of Emerging Infectious Diseases.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing accomplishments.
I felt my medicine and art finally came together.
Oh my goodness, that's so lovely. There is something special, I think, about the blend of art and medicine, and whether that's around emotional well-being and physical well-being, and there's a lot to that. And so it's really interesting how it's been blended together for you. Now, I have a question. Did you fully retire from medicine first and then decide, oh, I need something to fill my time, so I'm going to go do this? Or was this like some thoughts like as you were retiring? Tell me more about that transition.
Yeah. There was a transition phase when I was thinking about slowing down and all
Okay.
that. I thought about doing all these dabbling into things. And as I was thinking about visual art, I started to take lessons. But to be honest with you, I could never finish a series of lessons. They do these things like over 8 to 10 lessons
Yeah.
that we do together, because I would always get called for some kind of a emergency or this and that. I would
Oh.
miss quite a few. But no, I did start to think about doing it before I completely closed my medical shop. I still haven't retired
Oh,
completely. I
good.
still consult,
Oh, nice. I
and-
see.
but I don't see patients anymore.
So it's more on the consultative side of the work. Yeah, and that's something that I talk to folks a lot about when they want to make a transition is trying and experimenting with things while, you're still in your day job, quote unquote, and until you can get a sense of, yes, this is definitely something I want to pour more time and energy into. So I was curious about that. I'm glad to hear that you did kind of both of them at the same time until you figured it out. And then now mostly is most of your time in the artist world, or is most of your time in the medical world?
No, now most of my time is spent in the art world.
Yeah, good for you. That's fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know it's going to be really inspiring, especially for those listeners that are interested in a creative field at some point in their career. Now, you mentioned your work with the Washington Post, how it got picked from the Washington Post and was on the cover of the publication there. And I also understand that some of your work has been displayed in hospitals and colleges as well,
Yes.
which is pretty remarkable. So tell me, how do you think that art contributes to healing in a hospital or in an education type environment?
Both those places are pretty stressful environments. People who are there, they are not, I mean, in academic colleges and all that, it's a different thing. It's more of a stimulation. But during working as a student, you go through a lot of stress also, because you want to be the best and
Yeah.
scoring, and sometimes tackling different subjects can be challenging. So if there are environments which can be kind of soothing to the mind, it would be helpful.
Yeah.
And similar situation, exists in healthcare settings also, because not only the healthcare providers, the patients and their families also are going through stressful situations, and they need at times calm, peace, or just feel at ease, or some wave of serenity around them. So what happens is that when people are exposed to art that is soothing or calming, it stimulates their prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of the brain up near our forehead, and that kind of releases healthy neurotransmitters like dopamine, and they go into a central area of the brain called limbic system, and that stimulates the reward systems. And all that kind of chemical transmitters feeding into another just create a kind of soothing um, milieu in your mind that you feel more at ease and comfortable,
Yeah.
and you can focus better on whatever you have to. And many times it's just focusing on doing these kinds of activities that takes your mind off other stresses that might be bothering you.
Yes, that's where my mind went with it, especially in the hospital setting. If you're in a stressful situation, whether you're a patient, a healthcare worker, or a family, seeing beautiful artwork can take your mind right out of the stress and into something different and beautiful that can, like, yeah, I love how you shared the science of it. There's actual science that can help with that emotional comfort and that
Yes.
therapeutic impact that it has. I mean, that's a big piece of probably the healing process too.
Totally.
So yeah, I love hearing about the science of art. I feel like I've always known there's something there, but the actual science of it and how it changes our brain chemistry is pretty remarkable.
Yes. And I tried to say it in a very succinct way, just gave you a little nutshell.
Yeah,
There is a lot more detail in that.
for sure.
It's more for like scientists and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's really interesting to know, just to have that in our minds that that's so important. And the other thing that came to mind as you were talking was I think a lot of times we think about actually doing the art can be very therapeutic, but also looking at the art, interpreting the art. Like there's having it around you, having a beautiful space around you. Like there's a lot to that element of it as well, which we were just talking about. So I think that's really interesting to think about art in both of those ways.
Yeah, and this kind of creativity is like trial and error.
Yeah.
It's a journey. It's not like you are going to master it the first month or first year and all that. Even after many years, there are days, when nothing seems right. And there are days when every stroke feels the right way.
Yeah.
So, and you're not trying to achieve perfection. You're only trying to go through the process, heal yourself, and hope to heal the others. Plus, the an artist spends a lot of time in solitude doing all these things.
Mm.
I mean, whether they are listening to music or like I sometimes will listen to audiobooks besides music or be perfectly quiet at times. But when you're quiet, you're really focusing and putting a piece of yourself on that canvas too.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought. I just had one quick question while you were saying that. How long does like a normal piece take you, like on average?
It depends on the size.
Yeah.
So, like a 12 by 12-inch piece of canvas can maybe take 2 or 3 days, but because I put multiple layers,
Yeah.
so I have to wait for it to dry in between and all that. And I work on multiple paintings at a time so that while the one is drying, I can work on another and things like that. But a big one can even take months.
Oh yeah, that's what I was curious about. Yeah, I could see some of the artwork I've seen online is very intricate, and
Yeah.
I love how you shared that you work on multiple pieces at once. I think that that's a really interesting way to work in art, and maybe like how you're feeling each day kind of contributes to that as well. So
Yes.
yeah.
And when I'm working on a theme, I have to, like a series, like for my upcoming solo show, I'm calling it Between the Earth and the Sky, which could basically entail everything, right? We are all between the earth
Right.
and the sky. But somehow I'm tending to focus more on nature. What I want to present is more about the nature. Somehow flowers and trees and those kinds of things are just popping up more in my mind as I'm working through them.
Ah, that's the inspiration. I feel like nature is so inspiring. I love the colors, the change of seasons. We were talking, you're in Michigan, I'm in Western New York. We get to experience the change of seasons, which is so beautiful. And seeing things come
Yes.
out from underground, in the springtime is fabulous. And I love hearing about your inspiration with nature. I'm so there. Now, I have to ask you too, because you had mentioned the perfectionism, which is a huge piece for folks. And so just talk to me about that. Like, did you just start like experimenting and trying things and letting go of perfectionism right off the bat? Or was that a hard piece for you to let go of, especially when you're submitting your work to the Washington Post?
No, it's the moment when you feel it is done.
Ah,
You have to look at it, set back. I mean, even as I'm working through it, I have to push myself back away from it, like create a 6 to 8 feet distance and evaluate and see which way I wanted to go more. Rotate it, like the canvas in different ways, especially in abstraction.
oh
That's
yeah.
very helpful to see it in different kinds of orientation,
Yeah.
to see whether it holds it looks interesting, in every which way and things like that. And sometimes a touch here, touch there. And obviously, it is perfect in my eyes when I stop it and take a photograph and say, now it's ready. But it's such a subjective feeling.
Yes.
It's there are no criteria for this that you can just precisely, focus on or guide yourself by. Like what may be perfect to me, the juror may decide that it's a horrible piece.
Right.
In the next show, if I submit the same piece, I may get a first prize.
Yes.
So it's not anything that you can say that this is the way to do it.
Right. Yeah. Especially with abstract. I was just thinking as you were talking about that. And it's funny, I just had a conversation with my dad, who is a designer. He's a graphic designer. And he said that they, in the art room that they used to work in, they would hold it up to a mirror after a piece was done and just see the reflection back and what needed to be adjusted. And you were just kind of talking about like turning it and like looking at different angles and stuff. And I just thought that that was an interesting element. So thinking about a mirror to reflect back what the perspective is. So just
And
neat thoughts.
many times taking a picture
Yeah.
and looking at the photograph also helps you.
I didn't even think about that.
Because many times, when you look at it and you have been looking at it and working on it, the camera picks up things when you see it as a whole through that in that small size.
Yeah.
You find things that were not visible to you or not obvious to you when you're looking at the big broad thing.
Right. And it's making me think too, when I was taking just a couple art classes in either high school or college, they had us paint or draw a photograph or whatever it was upside down.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting, if anyone's ever done that, but if you have never done that, listeners, give it a try. Take a picture, turn it upside down, and then start drawing or painting. You will be so surprised when you turn it back over how much it probably looks like the image that you are replicating, because your brain, like go back to the brain, right? Something in the brain is saying, okay, here's a picture of an apple upside down, but now you're looking at the shading and the shapes and the colors versus your brain knowing what an apple looks like. I don't know if that makes sense, right?
It does.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Totally correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So fun to think about. A lot of professionals that I work with, they struggle with like this sense of fulfillment in their careers or lack of fulfillment in their careers. So how did this creative path impact your mental and emotional well-being, especially at a time of a break, like a retirement? Like that's a big change for a lot of folks. And so talk to me about how that happened for you.
Well, there was a lot of fear of stepping into something new.
Right.
That was totally unknown to me, especially after having an established, I was at the peak of my other career and about doing it. But what I discovered is that it's never too late to follow a different path. And how doing so has brought me a sense of fulfillment because I feel drawn to it. I trusted that feeling. And it took me out of my comfort zone because I had to go through an entirely new learning curve. And I'm still learning, just like continuing medical education. I like to learn new techniques, new styles, and all that. So sometimes people are focused in just one thing, but I have not yet reached that stage when I say that I just want to create this and this will be my signature because I feel I'm still evolving.
Yeah.
But that is not the only thing that has brought me fulfillment. What I did is this passion for healing. I diverted, I have just changed gears. So instead of medicine, now I'm healing through my art. But that passion for creating art, I have combined it with a purpose. So my purpose is to fulfill the missions I have, like women's empowerment, gender equality, protecting the planet, just helping healthcare research, kids with autism, and all those kinds of things. So I have hooked up with a few of those charities, and I'm happy to look for more. But it takes some research into finding something that's real and matches my passion also and my mission also. So from every sale from my website, I will donate a portion of my proceeds to a particular charity that the client chooses. And that gives me a lot of fulfillment. To be
Yeah.
honest, more than creating it and all that, to
Wow.
be able to help and give back to the community
Yeah.
resonates me a lot.
Wow, I find it fascinating about how you tied all that together. So the healing power of creativity, the passion for doing the work, and the purpose as you're giving back to the community. So you're tying all of this goodness as you're creating these beautiful paintings. And so I think that folks that are listening and thinking about purpose, that's a really good example of bringing purpose into a career path. And the other thing that jumped out at me that you said, I trusted the feeling. So, and you had even said like you started with the music side of things and then moved into painting and that was the feeling that you trusted. Can you just share a little bit more about that? Because to me, it's intuition and you're following this like gut feeling, but it's pretty hard for folks to kind of get a sense of that. Do you mind sharing a little more about that?
Sure. So there is a lot of uncertainty at first, and
Yeah.
when we are embarking on a new vocation, you go through learning and uncertainties of learning, and whether is this right for me? Am I doing the right thing? Because you're also thinking about, not only from being a doctor, she's become an artist. What is she thinking? You're kind of always tied into what friends or family or
Yes.
people will think. But I was fortunate that I knew that I had achieved a lot in my medical field, and doing some more in that was not going to make me or break me any further than where I was. So changing that into a new thing, I was frustrated quite often, and because it didn't quite look like what I was trying to paint in
Hmm.
representational art, or seeing other people, oh my God, this particular painting is so beautiful. Will I ever be able to do that? But you forget that when you're seeing that painting, that might be chapter 20 of that person, whereas you're still on chapter 1 on this
Yes.
journey.
Yes.
So I think not comparing, having confidence in yourself and trusting your gut instinct, and you need support.
Yeah.
Like I was very lucky that I have support of my family, my husband and children. They were all for, do what you want to, mom. So in the beginning, if I didn't sell, I'd tell my son that, oh, in this show, I only saw 3 or 4 paintings. And they say, Mom, you're not doing it to sell. You're doing it because you like to do it.
Oh.
And that kind of helped me a lot that,
Yeah.
when I combine it with the other purpose, of charities and all that, then I feel a lot better about it.
Yeah. So it sounds like it evolved over time, but you still followed that gut instinct,
Yes.
that original instinct, and just did little by little. And then taking, I think, the plunge to share it with, like you said, the Washington Post, and then have you get that feedback like, oh, it was accepted. And then you start, so little by little, then you start doing more and you have the support of your beautiful family who is encouraging you and the kids bringing you the reality check, which is so lovely. And I'm glad that you mentioned, the fear of the unknown and then worrying of what other people think, because that is a very, very common fear as people make any kind of career change is, oh my God, I'm worried about, what are my parents going to think? What are my kids going to think? What's my old boss going to think? There's always this list of all these people, but usually they're also usually the ones cheering you on from whether you
Yeah.
end up finding out or not, because what you're doing is bold and creative and very cool. So I appreciate you bringing that conversation to the table.
Yeah.
Now, you've achieved recognition in both medicine and art. So, do you find any similarities or transferable skills between these two seemingly different fields?
Completely. Because I am what I am because of my first career, you
Right.
know, and empathy, healing, compassion, all
Yes.
these things were naturally in me.
Yeah.
And now I'm just redirecting it in a different way,
Oh,
but
so good.
trying to achieve the same purpose, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, art is not just a creative expression, it's a powerful tool for improving mental health and fostering emotional healing.
Mm-hmm.
By engaging the various areas of the brain responsible for pleasure, emotional regulation, and stress reduction, I feel art offers a unique way to support the mental well being. And that can be for mentally, challenged patients and also for normal people in stressful situation. That if they take time out to just divert their mind by some doodling or doing any other kind of activity, like just making strokes or whatever you feel like with colors or lines or
Mm-hmm.
shapes or whatever will distract you. It's like journaling.
Yeah.
You put down words that write down what bothers you or just take it off your chest. The same way you can do the same thing. So, whether through observing or creating art, I feel it opens up pathways for relaxation, healing, and emotional resilience because resilience is what not just facing an adversity, but coming out of it
Mm-hmm.
and becoming competent and successful in whatever new venture you want to do or face it in a more positive way.
Yes. I what really jumped out at me there was the redirection. So you have these skills like this empathy and the human connection, and you're just redirecting that in a different way. And so that is such a fabulous way to think about transferable skills. So in my world of like career coaching, when people want to make a change, we talk about what are those skills that are transferable between the two different fields. And this redirection of energy and time and skills, I think is a beautiful way that I haven't thought about before to think about that. So yeah, thank you. And there are, I mean, I think about like that human connection too, like the medicine and understanding patients, and then the art and in expressing like emotions and stuff. Like there are so many connections to this when you think about even problem solving, like
Yes.
creative and problem solving with patients in medicine. Like it's not black and white. Every human is completely different. You have to be creative and solve problems. And same thing when you're making art. And I think about the attention to detail, the observation that you mentioned. Like there are so many transferable connections, within these fields that in my mind most people really wouldn't see. So I'm really grateful for you to pull those out and share them with us.
Yeah. Because, when you do this, you're really bringing yourself to the forefront by you overcoming obstacles, you are finding new ways to deal with it.
Yeah,
But what you have learned from your previous career or previous phase of your life really can be a stepping stone to go forward. So
definitely.
I wouldn't think of it as a negative something, but I would build more on it.
Redirect it. You're just redirecting it. So tell us a little bit, what's been the most rewarding moment of this artistic career?
I mean, obviously, recognition by Washington Post and CDC has been. But another thing is one of my grandsons, he loves to sit and paint with me. And I recently created one artwork for this show where when I showed him my concept, so he did the background and I did the foreground. So to be able to sow some of these seeds in future generation, I feel I'm creating a living legacy of
Oh,
what I like because medicine is such a profession. Yes, I would love it if one of them wanted to, or all of them wanted to become doctors. But even if they don't, I think to have opportunities to have this kind of de-stressing ways, from childhood is
mm,
going to be such a positive thing
yeah.
go forward. Another, very aha moment for me is to have been able to do solo show every year. So
Fabulous.
that requires a lot of challenge and a lot of work, but I just enjoy it because I feel that when I do that and combine it with my missions of charity, I hope to become and stay a lighthouse brand rather than just any other regular person,
Yeah.
that I want to give back and try and do and spread the word about this art and effects of art on brain. So in October last year, I was invited by WHO to talk about the effect of art on neurodivergence. And from there and on, I have not looked back and I'm just trying to spread that word and feeling about how any kind of art, whether it is music or sculpting or clay or visual art, cooking, sewing, knitting, whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
or you should just do it and learn to de-stress yourself just to be able to live a more profitable and fruitful life.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I love that you're out there sharing this message. It is so, so needed, especially in our world of these things, technology. I'm holding up my phone and
Yeah.
we've gotten too far away from, I think, like pen to paper, analog. Like there's so much power in pen to paper and doodling and sketching and getting your ideas from your head onto that transfer. There's so much goodness in there. And what you were describing here, from the Washington Post to the lovely story about your grandson to the solo show, the word legacy comes to mind. And this legacy of, this very profound career change on top of the meaning of it for you is just such a beautiful, beautiful story to share. So yeah,
Thank you.
great job with it. Very
Thank you.
thoughtful. Now, two more quick questions for you. Maybe not quick, but two more questions for you. If there's somebody listening who wants to channel creativity in their careers, what are some steps that you would recommend?
I would tell them that if anyone is considering a major career change, listen to your inner voice.
Mm,
It's never too late to pursue your passion. So if you feel that this is what I would like to do, and it may not be the only thing that you may like to do, so maybe you should take time to experiment with or spend time with a couple of different options before you decide what is it that's going to gel for you the most. And then do it slowly and systematically, because nobody achieved a huge mega something in a day. It
right.
was the small baby steps and small steps that build the whole thing up, and help you focus on what more one should do.
Yeah.
And for me, I found that in art, but it can be for anything else, for anybody else, like graphic design, computer skills. If you're just, it just depends on what that person likes and wants to do. And when they do that, it will allow them to express their complex ideas and emotions and spark important conversations and challenges. And I think make somebody a more enriched person.
Yes, that fulfillment comes into play. And I've found working with folks, especially creative folks, when that creativity is not relevant in your day to day job, it gets so frustrating for somebody that wants it to be. So being creative and figuring out, listening to that voice, it's never too late. Starting small, all of those things you are speaking my language, my friend. All of those things is exactly what I share with folks. And I guess like one other thing that comes to mind to me about you is really embracing this like learning or growth mindset. So it's not, you've said that before too, like it's not just learning one medium. You're trying different mediums. You're continuing to take classes. You're continuing to try different ways of art. And that's that growth mindset 100%. And so I think embracing that too, if anyone's thinking about making a change into a creative field, can be really helpful. And that helps you get over the fears and all of those things that we talked about. So, yeah.
I agree.
Now, I always like to end with a flourishing favorite. So, a book or a podcast or another resource that has had a significant impact on your career and why you would recommend it.
You mentioned before we started the podcast the book about the effect of art on brain by Susan. I forget the name of the authors,
Yes.
but reading that shed a lot of light for me about how the neuroscience and the neuro arts are together. And having been a person with a medical background, I really enjoyed that. And it is very nice to put those ideas and theories that they are putting forward and seeing a lot of research being done in that field. I feel immensely grateful that, I found this particular vocation
Yeah.
that helps me continue my mission of healing. But that book I really enjoyed. There are several other books on art and how it affects the brain and all that. But this one is one of the latest that resonates the most to me about the neuro arts, because I feel it's an very much evolving field, and I would like to get more into it and hopefully get into some kind of a research about it with another practicing neurologist, to try and do a study about how the art will affect people just walking into galleries, and maybe ask them some questions. And I mean, it would have to be done in a systematic way, but I'm looking for ways to try and see if I can start something like that.
Oh, yes, we need it. So this book is called Your Brain on Art, and then it's How the Arts Transform Us. And it's by Susan Magsamen and Ivy Ross. And it is fabulous. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but before I was going to talk to you, I pulled it from the bookshelf because I knew that you have had to have read that. And one of the really interesting pieces of this book too is that I think they actually prescribed a museum visit for folks that were dealing with things like early onset dementia and everything. And so to prescribe art is so profound. And I am so grateful for people like you and these researchers that are taking the time to research that, because there's something there. There's definitely a connection there. And I love that it's coming to the conversations more and more. So yeah, I would love for you to do that research. And if you do, please let me know because it's fascinating.
I sure will. Yeah.
Well, Vasu, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such a delightful conversation, and I really appreciate you sharing your inspirational story. It's just been such a joy. So where can people find you?
Okay, my website is www.vasutolia.art. And for your listeners, I have all kinds of paintings there, but not all of them are there. So if you like something and want to know something more about those kinds of paintings, please drop me a line. There is a way for people to contact me through it. And for your listeners today, I am going to offer gift of a abstract art calendar for 2025 with an actionable quote for each month in there. And there are 12 of my paintings in it, and I hope they will enjoy it.
Oh my goodness. When you mentioned this before we hit record, I was just so thrilled to hear what a generous and lovely gift. So yes, we'll make sure that those links are in the notes for folks. And I can't wait personally to get my own. So, oh my goodness. Thank you again for joining me today. And listeners, as always, the notes from today's episode will be on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.